CEO of Southern Africa Tourism Services Association, David Frost, is joining me in studio, along with travel blogger Natalie Ruiz. We're going to be speaking about traveling to destinations in crisis. Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Thank you both for joining me. Now, I want to start close to home before we get into international destinations. David, why don't you talk me through some of the blockages we have here in South Africa that are not encouraging tourists to come here?
Well, the first and major one is got to do with the visa regulations that have been imposed by Home Affairs. In terms of numbers, and there's been some debate about this and some quite spurious debate particularly from the Home Affairs point of view. The best indication that we've got in terms of sort of current data, because the official stats take a couple of months to come out, and we do have data for the first quarter, but the most up-to-date data we have is the IATA, all air ticketing into South Africa from every destination on the globe. The actual data we've just got in for the month of June in terms of ticketing revenue is 26% down year on year. Now, we've seen this elsewhere in the world before, but it's always as a result of an exogenous or an outside shock. So it's an ash cloud, or it's a tsunami, or it might be a terror attack. Commentators have said they've never seen a country do this to itself, and that is the tragedy of what we're dealing with. We're dealing with two aspects: the biometric the requirements to appear in person for biometric visas. The absolute shocker there is that these were imposed last year, and they still haven't got a single machine in place to capture the biometric data. So therefore, what's the point of putting something in place that it's going to decimate key markets like China, India, and Russia, when you haven't got the capacity to actually implement them? So that's the one issue. The other issue is on the requirements of birth certificates. And quite frankly, the shocking thing here is we were led to believe, and this was data that's put forward in Parliament. So there is a misleading of Parliament, not only Parliament but the public, that the size of the problem was 30,000 children being trafficked annually out of South Africa. We've now discovered that that is an absolutely bogus figure. The correct figure is 23 children over the last 3 years.
23?
Three.
Just 23?
23. And if that is the size of the problem, it begs a number of alternative solutions, one of which is what we've been going on about, is a far more sophisticated profiling approach where you target the perpetrators, you work with multi-agencies, you use people like Interpol. It does not require the blunt and very, very devastating instrument that they've put in place, which is this requirement that people have to carry sort of birth certificates around. And the final little just comment on that, if I may, is that what they've also done, what Home Affairs has done, is they've conflated, either deliberately or by incompetence, they have conflated parents, or one parent, taking a child away, abducting a child, within a relationship. They've conflated that with child trafficking. They are two totally separate issues.
Yeah.
And the Children's Act speaks to the former about parents taking, and then there's a different solution. And once again, the travesty in this whole thing, and we've been at this for a year, we've not had a single opportunity as a major sector that contributes 9% to the economy, 1.5 million jobs, not one opportunity to actually sit down and have our case heard by government. And in a fully functioning democracy, that's a shocker. Because what message does it send to any prospective investor, be it domestic or international? Here's a government that would legislate on spurious bases without consultation and do it willy-nilly. And quite frankly, our ability to appeal to Home Affairs is now, I mean, it's, we've been waiting patiently. We did this for a year. Our appeal now is to the rest of Cabinet, to the Minister of Finance, to the President and the Deputy President. Gentlemen, you need to create jobs. We've got a major sector that's under threat. Our other key sectors are shedding jobs by the thousand. You just have to open the papers this morning and look at what's going on in the mining industry. This is the one industry that actually is a model industry. We ask very little of government. We don't ask for subsidies. We don't ask for sort of major investment. The budget of the National Department of Tourism is half the size of arts and cultures. We account for 9% of the economy. All we ask is leave us alone. And we bring in foreign exchange, and we create 1.5 million jobs, many in rural areas.
Yeah, I want to come back to this in just a minute. Natalie, as a travel blogger, you interact with the community. People come to you for questions if they're thinking about coming to South Africa. How have these visa laws affected people coming to South Africa?
Well, a few weeks ago, I was traveling to Dubai, and as someone who doesn't have children and only has one friend with a child, it really hasn't been part of my scope lately. But I was at the airport, and there was a family in front of me who could hardly speak English, who were trying to get home and leave with their baby, an Indian family. And they didn't have the documentation. So I don't know if they came in before the documentation was needed, and now they were trying to get out. But I mean, we stood in a queue for over an hour waiting for them. They couldn't understand the question. And what were they? I don't understand what they were meant to do. They were both parents were there. They'd come in. They didn't have the documentation. So that's just, I mean, that's one flight for one person just trying to get out of the country. But everyone I've spoken to, it is so embarrassing because it doesn't make sense. The visa laws just, they don't make sense.
Well,
Embarrassing.
Could I just feed off that? Because, you know, one thing we haven't spoken about, we talk, you know, as an industry association about the sort of macro numbers. We are inundated with case studies daily of exactly what Natalie's saying, of situations at airports where planes are delayed by up to an hour. An hour is a short time, because what Home Affairs has done is they've put the onus on the airline check-in crews at Charles de Gaulle and at Atlanta International. They now the arbiters of this law, and they have to decide whether people come, and they often are not sure. Equally, what's happening is that travellers before they travel aren't sure of these things. So you're in a foreign country. Where's the first place you go to for information? The South African High Commission or consulate. But Home Affairs haven't briefed those the consulates and high commissions.
Why is it so unorganized?
So they bat people away. And the whole thing, and I mean, this speaks to sort of Natalie's world about blogging. We live in a viral world, and all this is doing is this is going viral. So the message that's going out there is that South Africa is just a hard and difficult place to go to. And when you've got choice, because this is what people going on holiday have, they have time and money, and they just want to go to a place where they can have fun and is easy to get to. As soon as we start putting these onerous obstacles in the way, they will just go to other places, and that's what we're seeing. And that's what Home Affairs don't seem to realize, and what government doesn't seem to realize is you know, if the birth certificates was the only way to solve this problem of 23 people being trafficked over 3 years, then fine, we'd all grin and bear it. But there are other solutions. And that's what we've been begging for, is an opportunity to discuss this as any rational sort of society would, and look at the alternatives. Let's explore the alternatives that are not going to damage tourism. Let's work through them. And if they're unworkable, we'll end up with birth certificates. Let's not start with this and then exclude anybody else from the debate.